I'm gonna start. Wait, where'd she go? She was just in here. Oh, well, we're all here. Good afternoon. This is the time for the Legal and Finance Committee meeting of the City of Rapid City, September 10th, 2025. We'll begin with roll call and determination of quorum.
Evans?
Here.
Lehman?
Here.
Secret? Here. Stroman?
Here.
May? Here. We have a quorum.
Next item is adoption of the agenda.
Move to adopt. Second.
We've got a motion by Lehman and a second by Tamang to adopt the agenda. All in favor? All opposed? Agenda is adopted. Now is the time for general public comment. This is a time for members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the council on any issue not on the agenda. Action will not be taken at the meeting on any issue not on the agenda, except by placement on the agenda by unanimous vote of the council members present. And I have one speaker request from Deborah Jensen.
Good afternoon, members of the Legal and Finance Committee. My name is Deborah Jensen, and I'm president of the Mount Rushmore Road Group, and we are here today for item number 3 on your agenda. We want to thank Mayor Solomon for appointing us to the Mount Rushmore Road Business Improvement District Board, and we're here today to seek your approval and your confirmation. As a property owner on Mount Rushmore Road, this is an opportune time for a bid. As Rapid City is growing, as you well know, this corridor remains central to keeping our downtown, our commerce, our medical facilities, historic sites, tourism, dining, and so much more. It's so important to keep it vibrant and to our city center downtown. And Mount Rushmore Road businesses are also dedicated to enhancing our retail, our commerce, and our community. Thank you.
Thank you, and I guess I should have waited till we got to number 3, but I'll just take that as, put it in at that place. I don't have any other speaker request forms, so I'm going to close general public comment and move to consent items 1 through 10. Open public comment on that, and I don't have any public comment forms other than Ms. Jensen. So I'm going to close public comment on consent items 1 through 10 and go to item number 1, which is approval of minutes for the August 27, 2025.
Move to approve. Second.
There's a motion by Evans and a second by Lehman to approve the minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next, we'll go to the mayor's office for items 2 and 3. And otherwise,
I move to approve. Second.
okay. We've got a motion by Evans and a second by Lehman to approve items 2 and 3. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next, we'll go to the finance office for items 4 through 8. Director Ainsley, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item number 4 includes several volunteers that we need to include in our minutes so that they're covered by our workman's comp insurance. Item number 5 is our annual audit report, and we have one of our auditors, Tracy, here, that's able to provide some information to the committee. If I could turn it over to Tracy.
Hi, I'm Tracy Hansen, a partner with Cato Thorstensen. We did the annual audit for the 2024 year end. Attached to the agenda today was the actual audit report, which is 118 pages long. I have no intentions to go through that, but there is a summary on page 112, and it has items 1 through 9. I'll touch on a few of those items. The first one being that the independent auditor's report expresses an unmodified opinion that is a clean opinion that you want to receive as a part of the audit process. So that is positive. Item number 2 indicates that there were deficiencies deemed to be material weaknesses identified during that process related to internal controls. The first of those 2 findings was related to internal controls for various departments within the city consistently and completely reporting information to the finance office. The second one relates to the fact that during the audit process, we posted audit adjustments. And then if I go back to the results of the audit process, the overall results of the compliance audit component of our audit, in addition to the financial statement audit, issued another clean or unmodified opinion, but we did have 2 findings related to compliance. One of those findings related to the requirement of suspension and debarment. As it relates to compliance, entities are not allowed to spend federal funding to an entity or a vendor that is suspended or debarred. During the year, you had a contract where that determination was not made. You did not check that the vendor was suspended or debarred. They were indeed not. You did not have non-compliance, but you did not have the controls in place to verify that. So that was the third finding, and the finding related to compliance. The second compliance finding related to period of performance. That compliance requirement indicates that certain federal funds can only be spent during a certain period of time. And you had a situation where you ended up spending money after the period of performance ended, but that was based on an oral communication with your regional federal office. Unfortunately, they weren't willing to come back later and say that they had done so orally, and so you didn't have the documentation to say that that was justifiable to spend that outside of the period of performance. So those are the overall results. A quick thank you to your finance staff, all of your departments that assisted with the audit process. We appreciate their help. It's about a 3-week process in-house in terms of on-site and numerous weeks on the front and back end for both sides to get through this process, so we appreciate the assistance in that. I will turn it over to you with any questions that you may have for me.
Thank you. Well, I think we'll go to Councilman Evans.
I just want to thank you guys for that really, really wonderful and informative audit review we had. If you guys ever want to launch a new career, the schools could certainly use some good business teachers like that, because you did a good job of explaining what we can't figure out when we look at this extraordinarily complex document. And if people haven't looked at it, wow, what a gigantic undertaking it is. So thank you for doing that yesterday.
You're welcome.
Next, we'll go to Director Ainsley.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And before we move on to the other items, I really do want to acknowledge a few of the staff members with the finance team that are in the audience. Dave spends probably close to 1,000 hours on this audit, preparing for it throughout the entire year, gathering the data, responding to the auditors, and the auditors also spend hundreds of hours, and they do a fantastic job, but I want to make sure that Dave is acknowledged, because he does a tremendous amount of work to get us to this point. So thank you, Dave. But also Tara and Tracy as well. They spend a significant amount of time when the auditors are here finding the data, ensuring that the auditors are able to find the receipts and everything else. They really are the ones that complete that. So I just want to extend my appreciation to those 3 team members. Item number 6 is a resolution that just cancels some of the checks that have not been cashed within a year. The total is $27,834.49. Item number 7 is to rescind a resolution that was done that declared some property surplus. It was a 2013 F-150 truck that the water department was surplusing. Our sanitation department would like to use that, and so in order to do that, we need the council to rescind that action to surplus it so that we can transfer that to another department. And then finally, item number 8 is just some assessments for some nuisances that were abated by our code enforcement division. There are 5 different properties. The totals are anywhere from $250 to $775.
Move to approve 4 through 8.
I just want to make sure, none of those checks were to any council members that didn't cash them, were they?
Only you.
Oh, okay. So there's been a motion, pardon me? Okay. I never get any anyway, so. We have a motion by Sechrist and a second by Evans to approve. All in favor to approving 4 through 8?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Next, we go to community development, and we'll go to Director Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item 9 is our annual TIP request. This is the Rapid City Metropolitan Planning Organization's Transportation Improvement Program. You see this annually. It's a 4-year plan that prioritizes a list of what improvements transportation-wise in our region, and a fiscal plan to implement that. And it's meant to serve as a fiscal management tool to assist state and local agencies as we're making our plans and coming forward with that. We've got Kip Harrington in the audience today if you'd like to know any specifics about the plan.
Any questions from the committee? Okay, we'll go to Councilwoman Sechrist.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say thank you for this effort as well. This is a tremendous lift. I know it's done annually. It's kind of a living document. I personally always enjoy going through and reading the projects that we have coming up. There's some big projects in the next 2 to 3 years that we're going to be looking forward to in the community, and a lot of beneficiaries in all areas of Rapid City. So thank you to the Long Range Transportation Department and Community Planning for your work on that.
Mr. Chair, if I can then go on to item number 10.
Sure.
This is a request to authorize the mayor and finance officer to sign what we call our pass-through agreement. It's with Danner. We provide air quality control and programming for the state in Rapid City. Morgan Twombly's in the audience today. She is our environmental planner that implements our air quality regulations with developers and property owners throughout the community. It's for $60,000, and that in part goes towards her salary. We monitor the amount of time she spends in that division to ensure that we're appropriating those funds correctly for air quality.
Thank you. There's a motion by Seacrest and a second by Lehman to approve 9 and 10. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. Next, we'll go on to item 11, that's Human Resources, and Ms. Cornella.
Good afternoon, everyone. This agenda item is requesting authorization to implement a resolution that would award any city employee who contributes one contribution equal to their fair share to the 2026 United Way campaign. That's defined as 1 hour of pay per month. There's currently a resolution dating back to 2011 that authorizes 25 days off to be raffled among contributing employees. So this really enhances that incentive. As you know, United Way of the Black Hills unites people and resources designed to improve lives throughout Rapid City and the Black Hills region. They're very centered on delivering long-term solutions to community challenges in the 3 key areas of education, financial stability, and health. And each year, their fundraising campaign supports more than 50 nonprofit agencies, positively impacting over 115,000 individuals. There was a robust discussion during a recent budget session about the council's desire to be able to have a positive influence on the community, and I believe this is an opportunity to do that through the employees with this incentive. If approved, this resolution would replace the 2011 resolution and would be managed by the Human Resources team via payroll. If I may, I would like to invite John Cass up to give a few comments. He's the Executive Director of the United Way Board.
Please. Welcome, sir.
Good afternoon, committee members. As Amber's kind of shared with you, this is a unique opportunity. You know, the funding cycles that have been taking place probably this year, you've seen with governments and things like that. This last year, we had a request for $2.8 million from over 60 agencies. As Amber mentioned, we were able to fund 58 agencies this last year. We've actually had connection with over 120 different agencies throughout the Black Hills through the work and the funds that people put in as resources. This is just a great way, again, to continue to have people give that opportunity to give back to their communities in different ways, where we're funding multiple agencies that even the city works closely with, places like Wavy, Journey On, Youth and Family Services, YMCA, different agencies that really do some of those unique services. So being able to have this partnership is a great way to kind of help reach some of those funding requests. And so we just kindly ask for you to say yes to this process. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Director Cornell, you have something got to add? Okay. We'll go to Councilman Evans.
I don't want to be old Mr. Councilman Puddleglum for this, but I won't support this for this reason. Unless we could guarantee that the value of the donation to United Way by the employees is the value of 1 day's leave, I don't see it as a moneymaker for, I think it's a money loser for the city, and a subsidy that we aren't necessarily prone to give anyhow. So I would recommend, I could support something if there were a rider in there. They need to donate the minimum of a day's, salary for the day off, because I believe it costs city money when people have a day off. Or they could donate one of their sick leave days or something, and that value. And I would understand that as more in keeping with the allegedly magnanimous intent of this. So I'm just doing the math in my head, and so I can't support this. Thank you.
And just to clarify, Bill, thank you for that. A fair share donation is the equivalent of 1 hour of pay per month, which is 12 hours and of donation by the employee, and what they would get from the city would be 8 hours of paid time off. So the donation would exceed what they received from the city as an incentive.
I still don't see that.
Okay, Councilwoman Sechrist?
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to give Ms. Cornella the floor to explain the fair share donation piece of this. Having been a Pass City employee, I had participated in that for a number of years, just the 1 hour a month contribution to United Way. It's really easy and meaningful. I never did ever receive a vacation day in the raffle or any other prizes. Just I think by randomness, but I think with just the need for, especially with our nonprofit communities being hit so hard with the federal cuts and the funding cuts nationwide, that this is a really creative and unique way for the city to incentivize fundraising for a community-wide initiative. And so I'm happy to support this effort. I understand the reasoning and the need behind this, and thank you for being creative and coming up with a unique solution to a challenging problem. So, thank you.
I'll go to Community Development. Vicki Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 30 years ago, when I started working here, it seemed like every employee contributed to United Way. It was just in the genetics of coming on board, honored to be a municipal employee, knowing that we have a lot of benefits here that the rest of the community don't have. And over the years, that has significantly fallen off. And it's surprising to see the percentage of employees that don't choose to participate in United Way. It's not required, it's all voluntary. So what we're saying to them is, if you give us 12 hours of pay, if you give that to United Way, we're going to give you 8 hours off. And that incentive, we are hoping, will get people to again sign up, because it makes a difference. As municipal employees, we are also city leaders, and there is so much need in this community. And if we can set the stage for others in the community to realize the importance and the benefit when we all contribute to these organizations, it just makes the community a better place to live.
Let me follow up on that.
Go back to Bill Evans.
So I want you to, and I may have read this wrong, and I'm willing to admit that, but explain to me exactly how the compensation goes and how much money United Way gets and what it costs the city. Put it in real terms. Because I can change my mind, if I've read it wrong. Thank you.
I think Director Ainsley is going to chime in on that. But I also have a question that you can answer for me, Daniel. In this resolution from 2011, it looked like there was an authorization of 25 personal holidays to be donated. And I don't see that there's any restriction on this one. It could be any employee. So I don't know, we have 500 employees. So I don't know if that's intentional, that there is no restriction or not, but I guess go ahead and take a run at that, please.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. As Director Fisher brought up, it would require that the employee would donate 1 hour's worth of pay per month. And so in the end, throughout the entire year, they would end up donating 12 hours worth of pay. The cost to the city would be 8 hours of vacation for the majority of our employees. There are a couple employees that have different shifts than 8 hours, but almost all of our employees are 8-hour shifts. So the cost to the city would be that 8 hours of productivity. And in return, United Way is raising 12 hours worth of pay for the greater community. In regards to the previous resolution, it authorized, I think, 25 days that would be allotted and that was based on a raffle. So anyone who would participate in the same thing, donating 12 hours worth of pay, I think it was a ticket, was placed in a raffle, and then they would end up getting pulled, and they could receive that 8 hours worth of PTO. The difference is that this no longer would be a raffle. This would be eligible to all, I believe, full-time employees of the city. And please, Director Cornella, please respond if that's incorrect, but I think it's for all full-time employees. And so there is a chance that it's going to be more, but I think that's the idea, is that we're trying to encourage more employees to participate than what we've had in the past.
And it's not specified to full-time employees, but it is the equivalent of the 1 hour of pay per month deducted over 26 biweekly pay periods. So that essentially results in a full-time employee who's working and being paid all 26 of those pay periods.
Would it cost us more or less as a city in the budget to just have the council donate that equivalent to United Way, or because we don't know exactly how much it would be? I just want to make sure we, are frugal.
Daniel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A lot of the employees that would donate, it ends up becoming a question of opportunity cost, so there's not an actual increase in expenditures to the organization, and so instead it's going to be, there's 8 hours of less productivity. I will say that a lot of the employees are still going to end up doing the same amount of work. A lot of them are salary. They're going to end up doing the same thing. They may have one extra day that they're not in the office, but that doesn't mean they're not going to do the same tasks. They're just going to do it over a couple different weekends or whatever that happens to be. There are some departments where there will be some additional overtime costs that the city will incur, most notably probably within the fire department. But that's, compared to the city as a whole, that's a small percentage. And so in general, this should cost the city far less than if the city were to write a check to the United Way for however much would be raised.
Thank you. And Director Cornell, I mean, so the previous resolution talked about basically 25 personal holidays was the limit. And this is 1 hour per pay period for however many employees we have. So it seems like it's substantially different to me, because like the personal holidays, again, that would, if they give up a vacation day, then like Daniel was saying, then we're not out any productivity. But if it's just 1 hour of regular work time per pay period for an unlimited number of employees, then it could be substantial. So I guess I'd have to think about that. But I'll go to Joel Landine, City Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, much like Vicky, I've worked for the city for over 20 years, and when I first came, the city was, frankly, we always have positions on the United Way board, and as a matter of disclaimer, I'm currently on the United Way board. Previously, Pauline Sumption, the finance officer, was. Seems like usually there's one of the public safety chiefs that's on the board. And so the city has a long history of supporting the United Way campaign. And along with a lot of the other major employers in town, the hospital, Black Hills Energy, the military used to be heavily involved. And I guess much like every other nonprofit and fundraising, over the last several years, there's been a decline. A lot of the businesses, the large employers in town, are starting to do their own fundraising. I think Monument Health has their own charities now, and they're encouraging their employees. So the United Way has seen the need rise because all these organizations that have been receiving funding and that need funding, all of their costs are increasing. And yet the workplace campaigns that used to bring in the majority of the money are declining. Basically, not just the city, but across the board. The United Way is looking at other ways for large gifts, large donors, things like that. But, trying to stabilize a little bit, the workplace campaign was always a kind of stable source of revenue for the United Way. because you kind of knew the city was going to bring in this amount of money. I would say again, over the last 10 years, that has steadily declined. I think what I've observed personally is a lot of the older employees, they gave to the United Way as they retire and move on. The younger employees, newer employees, they're just not doing that. And, you know, there's been changes in the tax codes and things, so it's not encouraged giving as much as it did previously. What we found, we used to do prizes. There was a limit on the days off, and then we also, all the directors would contribute prizes. What we found is that, frankly, it wasn't much of a motivation. What we consistently hear in the department director group and the supervisors is the incentive that the people like is the days off. You know, it's tough to quantify what the cost of that's going to be. On the other hand, I don't think every employee is going to donate or anything like that. If it were a situation where, you know, we did, before this got brought forward, have the discussion in the department director group about what would the cost of this be? Is this going to create issues? And the decision was that, yeah, we still think it's worth it to try to incentivize it. If the city still wants to support the workplace campaign, is this something we could do to continue to try to support the United Way in the campaign? And maybe it isn't something that the council's interested in anymore. But right now, there is a need, as Mr. Cass pointed out. The requests keep growing and the amount of funds raised keep going down. So we tried to take what we thought and what we've been told is the highest incentive to see what it did. Now, if it turns out it's wildly successful and there is a real cost to it, then we may have to, you know, again, look in future years, is this something that we can continue, or do we have to put a cap on it? But right now, I would say if we got to a situation where we were even having that discussion, that would in some ways kind of be a victory for us that we were that successful. But until we try it, I guess we don't really know totally what the impact's going to be. I can tell you, though, consistently, the amount that the city has raised and contributed to the workplace campaign has been pretty steadily declining over the years, or at least not growing. So even though the employees have, I want to say it's probably 60 to 70, but I don't hold me to that. I don't remember what last year's amount we raised was completely.
Thank you,
I
Joel.
may I add one more thing?
Sure.
When I joined the city about a year ago, we were heading right into the United Way campaign, and I was really surprised at the amount of staff hours that were dedicated to asking for prizes, calling businesses around the community, asking them to donate to our city for us to give to our employees, asking directors, and then even the way that we were handling the sign up. And we're streamlining all of that this year to where employees will sign up online. It'll be direct payroll deduction. And if this is approved, the personal holiday would replace the raffle, the collection of prizes, the asking of donations, the calling to local businesses, asking them to contribute to this so that we can incent employees to contribute. So it would take a lot of time off of staff and allow them to spend that time doing other things for the city.
Go back to Vicki Fisher.
Waiting for, thank you, Mr. Chair. So right now, in the past and currently, we have 25 vacation days that get raffled. For anyone that contributes to United Way, they could contribute $2 a paycheck, and they're a part of that raffle. With this change, that gets rescinded, and then anyone that contributes 1 hour of pay, then they would get that 1 day off. As supervisors, we would look at the schedule. Just because they get the day, they don't get to necessarily pick the day. So we would look at it to ensure that the day that they're allowed off doesn't interfere with providing services to the public that are needed. And I think that is a more fair and equitable way of looking at it than those that are just contributing to get their name in the raffle, and it's really not having a big impact on helping United Way. Just trying to break it down to math. And this way, it's not technically costing the city anything. If we're still providing all of our services, the employees donating the pay, and we're getting a substantial amount, so it can make a difference when United Way disperses those funds.
Go back to Bill Evans, which he says one final comment, he said, so.
Well, thank you. I can relax about the people being opportunistic, but there's still two items that do concern me. One is that the overall thing is not quantified, and we've been trying to hold the line on things with the council and justify every dollar we allocate. The other thing is that in many of these cases, the same people that receive grants from United Way, we have line items already in our budget. Is that not true? For youth and family services, I could go down the line. And so to me, it's kind of a double dipping thing. And I think if we wanted to support that, we would increase that in the budget and do it that way rather than have to do it through this sort of semi-coercive way of doing it. Those are my concerns, and I'm probably willing to let it, change my mind and let us try it for a year, see how much it costs us. But I think in the future, when we come up with these proposals and end up costing us money, we should have time to review some of this and do the math before we're asked to vote on it, before we really have all the details. Here's another instance where it's a little bit, shot in the dark. So, thank you.
And can I say something, Lindsay, before you go back in? I just, then that's one thing I was talking to Mr. Evans about is I'm a little concerned that we don't have any way to quantify this at this point. And I'm also concerned, how do we deal with the next nonprofit that comes up and has an equally meritorious request? And are we just going to be dealing with these over and over and over again? I'm not trying to diss the United Way. They do great things. They have for years in our community, and they've had a lot of support from our community. I understand, though, that things are tailing off, and a lot of places are setting up their own foundations and boards to handle charitable giving. I totally agree. I understand what you're saying. I'm a little concerned about what kind of a precedent this sets. Are we making ourselves? Are we showing favoritism to one when the next one comes up? And then they're going to say, well, you did it for United Way, why won't you do it for us? So that's all I've got on that. And go back to Councilwoman Sechrist.
Thank you, Chair. I just, in response to Mr. Evans' comments on the kind of the duplication of funding, and I completely understand his concern there. But however, my understanding of the impact of United Way goes far beyond the impact of the few nonprofits that the city is able to support through our contingencies. And I was just going to ask Ms. Cornella to emphasize, if you could, again, how many organizations in the Rapid City metropolitan area we're supporting through, or United Way would be supporting through their campaign efforts throughout the year. I know YFS has been the beneficiary of some CBDG funds, but they're not part of our typical budget line item funds like WAVY and Care Campus and Humane Society.
Yes, thank you for that. I believe John said 58 specific agencies this year. And there's also a very thorough vetting process for which agencies get the funding from United Way, agencies that are applying for grants, that are doing fundraising efforts as well. So United Way dollars really complement that. But I think it would be helpful if John could come up again, if I can call you up here, John, and just explain a little bit more about that vetting process and how United Way is intended to enhance what those nonprofits are doing versus the question about taking away from them. This request did not come directly from United Way. I serve on their board, and this was my request because I've worked previous places where employees were incented to contribute, and the impact was huge. And that employer also got some goodwill from the community because they were able to say, through our incentives, we and our employees contributed X amount of dollars to our community.
These have been all really good questions. Probably in the Rapid City specific area, of those 58 agencies, you're probably looking at 38 to 40 of those are based here in Rapid City that do work throughout the entire Black Hills region. The question around what the city funds and what United Way funds, I would always keep in mind that many of these organizations have multiple programs. So we don't like to say we fund agencies. We actually fund the programs that fit within education, health, and financial stability. So there may be a program that you are funding specifically as a city, and they're asking us for money for a different type of program, as many of these organizations are running in the millions of dollars that they need to raise every single year. So we are just a portion. As Amber has mentioned, we have a volunteer base of people that come together and divvy out the money that is raised. So it's not a United Way is only going to help this organization or this organization. It's really sitting down and vetting all of these individuals that come forward. That does not mean any of the organizations that are out there don't need the funding. They're not as important as United Way. United Way is the safe spot to go, that you know your dollars are being overseen in a way that we go through a grant process with them. We make sure that their financials are steady, so that if you'd come back and ask us questions, we could say, this is how they're using their dollars, this is why they're using these dollars in specific ways. But I think it's important that we hear that many of our organizations, our nonprofits, have multiple programs, and those are the things that you are funding and we are funding, not necessarily the agency.
Thank you, Mr. Cass. I just wanted to emphasize, I understand the concern in that there may be some duplication at times in some of those funds, but just the widespread impact that United Way has on the entire Black Hills. I know you're working on behalf of not just Rapid City, but in our community. So thank you.
There's a motion by Tamang and a second by Sechrist to approve. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
That brings us to the end of the consent calendar, and I'm going to open public comment on non-consent items 11 through 13. And having no speaker request forms, I'm going to close public comment on the non-consent items and go to community development for item number 11. Authorize the mayor and finance officer to sign the contract with Tyler Technologies for the energy permitting and licensing software system and approve expenditure of $330,668 for e-submittal software. And go to Community Development Director Vicki Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we put together a committee of staff, including the county, to ensure that whatever we stand up as our e-submittal software program, that is user-friendly across the board for all city departments to use. And they landed on choosing Tyler for that e-submittal software. The great news is that while you approved in our budget $600,000 to stand this program up, we're bringing it in at $330,000 and some odd change. This is significant savings. It also allows us the funding then to get all of the software that we need for the users to come onto the program as well. In addition, next year you'll see our budget reduced as we'll track it. The software that we currently use just for tracking our permitting process, we'll retire that and Tyler will take over. I have Jessica Olson in the audience. She worked extremely hard on vetting the different proposals that we had before us. It is also, and if you have any questions about what this will do, Jessica's the one that can assist us. It's important to note that while at first we were hopeful that we could allow the county to come on and piggyback, where we would just charge them a user fee, it turned out that we couldn't. Tyler was willing to work with us, but the overall cost of bringing the county in and then not having any control of how they used it, it could excel our expenditures beyond what gets approved in our budget each year. So unfortunately, they will have to secure their own e-submittal software. We are asking, though, that you do support this.
Okay, thank you. We'll go to Lindsay Sechrist.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say, when I read this item on the agenda, I was really pleasantly surprised. This is an item that we've been discussing for the past couple of years, the need to move into modern age technologies and just with being able to submit digital plans. And so I had a couple questions, if I may direct those to
Ms. Olson?
Ms. Olson. Yes, thank you, Jessica. On the code enforcement capabilities, so the brochure that was attached to the agenda item kind of went through what the technology has, and I didn't know if that includes everything that we're purchasing here with our licensing software system that we're approving today. I know, and I was particularly interested in not only the e-submittal software program, but one, just that our developers are able to submit digital plans for approval. And so we won't be requiring 3 copies of the plans to be dropped off at City Hall. And I know our hours are kind of goofy in the planning department as well, and closing at 4 p.m. So that's sometimes a hindrance to people to be able to get here to drop their plans off. So I wanted to confirm that. And then are we planning to use this in any of the code enforcement capabilities that were featured in the brochure, just to streamline that process with enforcement, compliance, record keeping, all of that?
Yes, thank you. I'll address the code enforcement part first. So that is part of the community development software that is part of the $300,000 that is being expended. It's a module under the system, and it's a really easy, I don't remember if it's in the brochure or not, there's some buttons that you click to go to do a permit. And so it's really easy to kind of follow through, see what you're trying to do, and get to the right application. Same thing with the code enforcement cases. You just click a button that says, I want to report a code enforcement issue. And so they would go in, specify what it is. You can submit pictures of whatever they're trying to report, and then it would go into the back end of the software where it gets assigned to the person that's in that area. So everything's GIS location based. So when they put the address in, they could even select like something on the side of the road to be able to go and locate where the code enforcement issue is. It'd get assigned to an officer. Everything under that, it's treated like an application, so everything under that application is saved. So every time they go out and do an inspection, they'd log that, and it would show up in the case. And the person that's reporting can have a kind of like a login and access that as well. And so you'd be able to track how it went through the process, if they got any letters, if there was an issue, if there was any abatements on it, all the pictures, any documents that were saved under that. Very similar to how our permitting would go as well. It's just kind of a simplified version. For the permitting side, yeah, everything can be completely electronic. One of the nice things that we opted into was the e-review. So we have Bluebeam to be able to do actual reviews on the PDFs and make notes and do measurements and things like that. So in the Tyler software, you would click a button and it'd open the document that was submitted for review. All of the reviewers can access that same document at the same time and see each other's comments. And so then that also eliminates contradicting things, or if you're seeing, engineering saying something and planning things, we might be able to work together to figure out the best path forward for providing the ultimate comments. That review period is internal first, so they can't see everything as it happens, and then it'll summarize all of the comments, give them the marked up plans and the summary of the things that they need to fix, and it sends all of that to the applicant, sends them an email automatically that says your review is ready. If they need to resubmit, it prompts them to do that. If they're good to go, they can move on to the next step. So yes, everything can be done online. We can also take paper copies and scan them in for them. So we're assuming that we're going to have some people that want to do it, the way that we've always done it. And so we also have the ability to do that at the counter with them. They don't even need an account. We can go in as staff and create an application for them. If they do want to put their email in to get those automatic updates, they can do that.
Mr. Chair, if I might.
Sure.
So one of the things that we did vet is that in visiting with the consultants and the developers, Tyler is something that a lot of those in our community are well aware of. It's what Box Elder currently uses, and as they're doing works in this state and other cities and other states as well, it's a very popular e-submittal software program. So we've gotten a lot of support that we go with Tyler. In addition, our financial tool with the city uses Tyler. And so being able to pay and submit using the same system is going to be user-friendly for our audience.
Ms. Olson, so am I to understand the customers reporting code enforcement complaints would be the citizens. So we'll have our own login, potentially, if you're interested in that, to have another way to report a code violation in our neighborhoods.
Yeah, so I believe the code enforcement part is you don't necessarily need a login. I'll have to double check on that, but either way, so the Tyler, and also mention other communities that use it, you'd use the same login that you already created for Box Elder or Sioux Falls, who also has Tyler. And they go in and report it, so if they want to be able to see what's going on with their code complaint, they can. But they don't I don't think they necessarily need a login to just report something. They do to make an application for a permit.
I was just really looking for this to make our code enforcement positions, I know we only have 3 or 4 employees in that division, just more efficient so that we can be more impactful and hopefully work to be more proactive in the code enforcement realm, and not just relying on citizen complaints to drive our response. But I thank you for the information, and I really appreciate that you guys have tied this into our financial software system, Tyler Technologies. I think that makes a lot of sense, and great work on reducing the cost of this software system, or whatever you call it. Thank you.
Oh, Councilman Evans.
So I think this is awesome and a long time coming. I'm sorry we didn't do it 20 years ago. And thank you for choosing Tyler. I do have a question about how the submittal process works. Before it gets to a final submittal, do the people have a chance to submit and catch all their mistakes in advance so they can actually do that before it goes in for final approval by the city?
Sure.
So yes, you're absolutely right. Right now, we have a submittal Friday. We stand at the counter with them. We go through the application and the checklist, and we don't take it unless it's complete. Now someone can submit it and present it to us for review to see what they're missing and what they still, and if it is a complete application. And we will, through the system, notify them that it's not accepted because these things are still missing, and then that will give them time to complete that so that they still meet that submittal deadline in order to get to the public notice requirements of Planning Commission and Council. That is a great point, and that's one of the reasons why so many in our community have been waiting for us to have e-submittal, is it makes it very user-friendly for them.
I move to approve.
Okay, we've got a motion by Evans and a second by Sechrist to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next item is item number 12, and we'll go to the Finance Office. Authorize $60,000 from the council contingency for the Minaloosahan Senior Center. Director Ainsley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This item was first brought forward to me by the council leadership, and then also it was a major point of discussion, I think, during the last council meeting. Simply, it would be authorizing a $60,000 payment that would go to Minaloosa. It would be cut if approved by the council. The funds would be available next week, so the day after the council meeting. Just important to note, there's no MOU or any strings, I guess, that are going along with this as far as I understand from the council. So how this is set up is that it would just be a one-time additional payment to them for $60,000 with no specific requirements as to how the funds would be used.
Thank you. I think that's accurate. This go to Councilwoman Sechrist.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just curious why there were no attachments to the agenda and thus explaining. This is the first time I'm seeing this email explaining the request. And my understanding from our last budget discussion was that this was in support of the Minaloosahan to relocate the kitchen, or excuse me, in support of the Meals on Wheels to relocate the kitchen. And so while I'm not in disagreement with the plan here, it just there's really no information available for us as a decision-making body at this point. I haven't seen this email. It was not emailed to my email, and there's not an attachment to the agenda that I'm aware of. So, and then also if we could talk about what's the long-term sustainability plan of the Minaloosahan, and that I've been through the facility. I know there's certainly a lot of needs. I'm not going to disagree or contest that. at all. I was just curious on that. And just as we've gone through this whole United Way discussion, I feel like this is very similar, just in making sure that we're being good stewards of our tax dollars. Thank you.
Go to Bill Evans.
I'd like to make a motion to approve and retain for comment.
Got a motion by Evans and a second by Lehman to approve, and we'll go back to Bill Evans. You change the floor.
And I think this email that came in, sometime here, and we all received a copy of it. You have one here? So did I. We just got it. I think it's for clarification as to what the use for this money would be. I know somehow it got sidetracked last week about being used for reinstalling all the kitchen equipment that's being donated over from the county to the Meals on Wheels kitchen. The board there at Middleluce, perhaps Lance, because I think he's the representative, could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is for program expansion, board development, reprogramming, technology upgrades, marketing and outreach, all of these things. I think the feeling was that over the last few years, there's been some additional money granted to Canyon Lake Center through vision funds and whatnot to build, pickleball courts and things like that. And I think this is just an attempt to, make things a little more equitable that way, especially with a new CEO in charge and trying to make this a place much more marketable and everything. And so far, what we've seen the last month, it's been kind of amazing with the amount of fundraising they've been doing and everything. So this is just to be a shot in the arm, to be used for expansion of their programs and everything. And I think it's a really worthwhile expenditure of our council money that's already approved for our use. So thank you.
Okay. So we've got a motion and a second. Go to Councilman Tamang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I fully support the Seniors Center funding, and the argument that was made before is different than what's before us here. And when you look at the quantities and what it's being used for, it's not spelled out adequately from my standpoint. I want to support them, absolutely, but you got $20,000 for culturally inclusive programming, $10,000 for board development, $15,000 for technology upgrades, $15,000 for marketing and outreach. You got one bullet point behind and no MOU to clarify what's actually happening. I don't know how this is direct taxpayer dollars, right? This isn't some theoretical thing. So I don't know how we approve that without a little more clarification. Maybe other people know more than me, but the email that's laid out right in front of me that we got literally an hour ago is made out to 3 council members. I'm not on the list. I didn't get this, so it's very difficult to approve this with what we have in front of us.
Go to Lance Lehman.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with Dr. Tamang. I think we should move this item a month to have the director of the facility give us more insight into what she's seeking. I am the board liaison, but I was not at the last board meeting, so I don't know if this was brought up at that time or if this is something the director is trying to push forward. I'm supportive of helping the center, but I think Dr. Tamang spells it out that we should have more understanding of where this money is going. So I'd make a substitute motion to move to the next Legal and Finance meeting.
Okay, there's a motion by Lehman and a second by Sechrist to move this item to the next Legal and Finance meeting. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. This will be moved to the next Legal and Finance meeting. Finally, I have number 13, second reading and introduction of ordinance number 6690, an ordinance amending the Rapid City Municipal Code to create the Business Improvement District Number 2. We got a motion by Sechrist and a second by Lehman. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chair, can we provide just a very, very quick presentation just to get some direction from the committee on the maintenance facility?
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I promise I will be very quick about this. This is in response to a request from both committees, I believe, last month when information was provided about a potential streets and maintenance facility update at our Steel Avenue location. Just very quickly, the Steel Avenue location sits upon, I believe, about 13 acres worth of property. In order to expand it so that we would be able to maintain the city's fleet over the next 10 years, we project that the estimated cost of that redevelopment would be approximately $36.5 million. I think it's important for the council to be aware that there are two structures that we would anticipate continuing the use of. One is a utility maintenance structure that was built in 2015 at a cost of $5 million. To build the same structure now, it would cost approximately $11 million. And then additionally, there's the Shop 2 building that was constructed in 1981. Though that is aged, there is still useful life of that. And so that, as well as the concrete and asphalt that surrounds the campus, has a value of about $2 million. And the fencing that goes around the site has a value of about $600,000. So there still is value at that existing site if we were to proceed at that location. However, if we were to look at a different location, one of the very few locations in the community that is properly zoned and has more than 20 acres is at the Black Hills Industrial Park. There is 25 acres of property that would be available to purchase. If we were to build there to accommodate our fleet needs for the next 10 years, the cost there would actually be substantially more, 65 to over $75 million is the estimate for that. However, the benefits to that are that there's additional land that's available there. So as the city continues to grow, we would be able to continue to expand at that central location. Additionally, and I think this has been brought up by several council members, it would free up the existing Steel Avenue location for a more highly desirable use for the community. Ideally, something that would have some integration with the School of Mines campus. Also, if we were to look at making some enhancements at our Steel Avenue location, there's really a few additional things that we would be able to self-perform. A lot of that is demolition work that we would be able to do. And so those total costs would really be able to save us about $3 million. If you look at a new location, there's just not as much effort that we would be able to put into that. If you look at the grading that would occur over a 25-acre parcel, that really kind of goes beyond what our expertise level is, as well as the amount of paving that would need to go in. There's just not as many opportunities for us to self-perform several of those tasks. So very quickly, the pros and cons between the Steel Avenue as well as the potential Black Hills Industrial Park location. Steel Avenue, the cost about $36.5 million. Black Hills Industrial Park, $65 to $80 million. The square footage that we would look at building would be higher at the Black Hills Industrial because right now it's a vacant parcel, but at the end, the total amount of usable square footage would end up being the same. So right at about 116,000 square feet. There is additional land for additional expansion at the Black Hills Industrial Park versus at Steel Avenue, without a doubt. Steel Avenue, we are going to start meeting our confined limitations there as our city continues to grow. And then also at the Steel Avenue, the location is slightly better as it's more centrally located. However, at the Black Hills Industrial Park, it has substantial connection points in the community. So even though there would be some additional travel time, it's not as bad as it probably looks like when you look at it on a map, just because of the significant corridors that it's immediately adjacent to. So importantly, when you look at the two options, realistically, the city would have to bond to do either of these projects. You would be able to pledge either some of your general fund revenues. That really is not what is recommended, as this is a long-term capital project, so it really should come from the other side kind of your finances, as well as if you were to use general fund revenue, you would have to find offsetting reductions to make the difference. So if you look at the other side, you have either the CIP fund or the Vision Fund. The issue is if you use the CIP fund, again, you're going to have to look at reducing the number of projects for several years that you would complete. And so naturally, that kind of leaves the Vision Fund as the way to be able to pay for this, similar as to what ended up happening for the Summit Arena. If you look at a 25-year bond, which is what's been suggested by the Bond Council, at a 25-year bond for the Steel Avenue, that would come out to just over $2.3 million. That would mean that for the remaining round 8 Vision Fund, you would be able to take it out of the comprehensive plan improvements. You would still have about almost $13 million available for additional comprehensive plan improvements. And then in future rounds of the Vision Fund, you would have between $10 and $12 million a year for future rounds of the Vision Fund. If you looked at the Black Hills Industrial Park, that's a $72.5 million. That would end up being an annual debt service load of about $4.6 million. To pay that out of the Vision Fund, you would still have in the comprehensive plan improvements for this current round, you would have right around $7 to $8 million available. And then in future years of the Vision Fund, you would have about $7.5 up to almost $10 million annually that would be available. And so with that, we're just looking for some basic direction from the council as to which option you would like us to work on as we are looking at hiring a design firm to begin work on this.
Okay, we'll go to the city attorney.
Actually, I must have, when I moved my computer, bumped it, so I didn't have anything to contribute.
He wants to move his offices, is actually what he wanted to say.
He wants to have a penthouse in the new building. Go to Bill Evans.
I guess I don't understand what you'd like us to do today. As you know, I brought that up a couple weeks ago, thinking of throwing good money against something that might be a temporary facility in the old site was just not very frugal, not very long-range planning. So what would you like for us to do today to give you instruction? Because I believe the overall impression of the council, the feeling was that we should invest in something that's going to be good 50 years from now. And I think we kind of discussed that a couple weeks ago. So I think that we're already leaning toward moving that to a new site and hoping that that former site can be developed and turned into something even profitable for the city in terms of taxes. So today,
I'm sorry, Mr. Evans, we agree with you. Just as we were looking at the numbers, we just wanted to be fully transparent to the council and just make sure everyone's fully aware that there is approximately twice as much to move to a different to move to the other location. So we just want to make sure that you're aware that if we proceed with that, it'll be an additional investment. I don't think anyone in Public Works would argue with that.
Would you like us to actually do a resolution, a statement or something?
No,
that we'd like you to proceed in that direction.
We just are looking for general direction that if you want us to continue working in that direction, we will.
What do you think we should do?
Yeah, it is.
I have a question, Greg.
Sure. Go to Lance Lehman.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Ainsley, as part of the water rate increases that were voted on, which I did not vote for, wasn't there $80 million budgeted into that increase to pay for this, so we're not having to use our vision funds? If I'm remembering the study correctly, which we got after it was voted on.
The water fund did include $80 million for additional structures, and a lot of that was for a lab, but some of it is also for water maintenance. And so we have discussed how we would be able to consolidate some of that into this location. So I'm not going to say that there's $80 million available in the water, but I think there is some additional water funds that would be able to be used at this new location. And so there would be some additional financing that would be available. I can't tell you right now exactly how much that would be, but in time we would be able to.
Thank you.
Okay, go to Bill Evans.
I'm going to make the suggestion that maybe in a couple weeks, you guys come forward with a proposal to move to the new site and let us consider it as such.
Sure.
And then we'll know exactly how everybody is thinking, and we won't have to be sitting up here wondering what to do next.
Sure.
Okay, and Lindsay Sechrist.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I concur with Mr. Evans. I think having a formal action or intent would be helpful. At this time, I think that's a lot of information. I did watch the Public Works, so I was even a little prepared for trying to come up with a determination. This weighs really heavy because this is a really large ask on the Vision Fund or potential CIP fund, which would reduce our level of projects that we can commit to with street improvements and some of our very, very basic needs that are needed in the community. However, I'm torn because I do believe that the long-term planning and so I guess my question to you, is there any way that we don't need as much space as what you're anticipating, that we can be more efficient and perform better with a new facility, a state-of-the-art I'm not asking for $80 million facility like that was proposed in the water rate structure that Mr. Lehman mentioned, but in some of the conceptual images we've seen of other maintenance facilities throughout the country, is there any way that we can get this number reduced down from 72 million? Is this a arbitrary cost, or how have you calculated that? It just seems like a very large ask.
It absolutely is a large ask, and that's why we wanted to be upfront and make sure the council was aware of that. It definitely can be scaled down. How it was determined was using the guidebook to look at the total amount of vehicles and equipment that are in the city fleet, and looking at essentially averages of saying when you have that much equipment in a city fleet, this is the number of bays you should have, and these are the size bays that we would need, and essentially building out the facility like that. With that being said, if the council said we want to proceed down that, but 72 or $73 million is just too much, maybe 55 is the number, then it would be scaled down.
I think it'd be really nice to have some community input too, just to see how other people feel on our decision here, because this is a large impact to the community one way or the other. But anyway, thank you for the information, Daniel. Appreciate it.
Dr. Tamang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would prefer to, instead of picking like one side and have a presentation made on it, I'd prefer to hear from the city staff with their recommendations. Honestly, I think that would be a better approach, frankly, than, community input's important, but this is a pretty specialized item, and I think the people that are working on the ground ought to be the ones making the recommendation and coming forward. So that would be my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
There's been a motion to adjourn by Lehman. And a second by Sechrist. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned. Oh, wait. Got one Alderman item.
Yeah, we can.
One Alderman item.
We've adjourned the meeting.
That's a separate thing.
Yeah, can we unadjourn a meeting? Because I was in the queue. I was just going to bring up that with Dr. Tamang's concern about oversight and how money's being spent,
I want to go back to my proposal for oversight over the $250,000 put in the mayor's fund, there where he can spend $50,000 unencumbered by any rules at his whim, even without going through his committee, because that's the way the ordinance is written for his fund. I would suggest, and I was going to make a motion to move that money, that $250,000 for the 250th celebration, over to the council contingency fund, where we would have oversight and be able to vote on any expenditures to make sure that they are legitimate. But I guess the only people that have to justify where money's being spent, according to some council members, is people who aren't the mayor. And so that bothers me that we have this double standard going on here where we nitpick these little dime things, expenditures, but other people have free reign to go crazy spending money however they want with no oversight. That is going to be hard to justify. And so I was going to make that motion before we got our panties all in a hurry and decided to adjourn the meeting. But I guess it's too late to do that now. I don't know if we can put it on next Monday's agenda. But I think this is a legitimate request to have oversight for that amount of money. And if you're going to argue and bellyache about 60 grand that's already approved in this year's budget for things that were spelled out in a list, and then we were told in a question here when we asked, what is that money going to be spent for? And at this committee 2 weeks ago, that question was put forth by Mr. Stroman, I believe, and it was said by certain members on that committee, oh, we don't know what that money's going to be spent on. But in reality, they'd already had 4 meetings or 3 meetings on it, and they were already deciding how the money's going to be spent. So I don't think people should be fibbing during an official business meeting of this council. That bothers me, and it should bother you as well. So I just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
I think that can be on the agenda for Monday night. Go to Dr. Tamang.
I think if there are to be procedural rules, we ought to follow procedural rules, and if we're adjourned, we ought to be adjourned. This is your decision, obviously, but that's my input.
Okay. Okay, so we're adjourned.